Hi, and welcome back to my series of videos talking about the checkboxes on BuzzFeed's How Privileged Are You calculator. I know I'm focusing a lot at the moment on race, so I'm basically going to be lumping the rest of the checkboxes regarding race into this video. There are about 8 in total, and I'll probably not talk about this issue much at all for a while after this video, unless there is a news story or something that I want to talk about and it crops up. I largely covered my bases in regards to my opinions on white privilege in my two-part video covering the statement, I am white. But these are statements that are slightly more directed than that kind of over-encompassing I am white. So let's go ahead and take a look at them. I have never been discriminated against because of my skin colour. I have! As a person who identifies as white, I've been lumped into this whole white people are all racist category that seems to be making the rounds at the moment. I'd say being called a racist based purely on the colour of my skin is discrimination. I'm also not really sure how this makes me any less privileged. If it is something that you could say that basically everyone, whether they know or accept it or not, goes through, can that be classed as a privilege point? We could also look at one of my favourite turns of phrase at the moment, white cis scum. Shit. I think I've just been discriminated against. I have never been the only person of my race in a room. Why would that make me any less privileged? If you're a minority and you're, say, the CEO of a company and you've hand-selected your staff and not one of them shares the same racial background as you, does that make you less privileged? I mean, you might be the only black person in that room, but you also might have the power to decide who you surround yourself with. I have never been told that I am attractive for my race. OkCupid did a whole study on racial attractiveness, looking at separate denominations of both genders and what races they tend to find more attractive. It's not really an issue of privilege if you can actually look at trends in statistics in order to determine whether a person's racial heritage has something to do with who they find attractive. I married a Caucasian man. I tend to find Chinese, Korean or Japanese people far more attractive than other denominations, but that has never ever prevented me from being in relationships or being attracted to people of other races. A person can't actually help the race that they are born as, the same way a person can't help what gender they are born as. And if a person can't help what gender they're attracted to, why should it be an issue if a person is inherently not attracted to a certain race? I'll concede that a person saying to another that they're not attracted to them due to their race, or that they are due to their race, is a bit weird, a bit dickish, but I wouldn't say that it's a privilege to have not ever been told that. And for the record, I have been told that I'm cute for a white girl. I really like the guy who said that to me. I still talk to him on occasion. And at that time, I responded to him by calling him a massive prick. We realised at that moment that we were both really rational human beings who can take a bit of light-hearted, dare I say it, banter. And we made a new friend that day because I decided that what he said was completely not offensive in the slightest. I mean, it takes effort to be offended. I have never been the victim of violence because of my race. This is a thing that also happens to white people. You can't turn around and say you are privileged because you are white, while then refusing to concede the point that all the individual things that contribute towards your imagined view of white privilege can then also happen to white people. I'll admit that racially motivated violent crime doesn't happen anywhere near as much to white people as it does to people of other denominations. You can go and check that for yourself. But even if it is only 0.01% of white people in England and Wales that are affected by this each year, it still means that approximately 54,154 people are victim to it. That's not no white people. I've never been called a racial slur. The only reason that there is such a thing as a racial slur is because people. Sargon, in fact, did the perfect response to this recently.
Don't let words hurt you. They are just words. Stop teaching children that words can hurt them. They're just fucking words. They don't do anything. They don't do any damage. No one is ever injured by a word. Therefore, it's not appropriate to condition children to think they should be injured by words, because ultimately they aren't.
You can find the link to the full video in the description below, and it's really good, it's really funny, and he makes some wonderful points in it. I have never been told that I sound white. What on earth does your voice have to do with your privilege? Are you butthurt because there's a chance that you might not sound like a minority and therefore there is a chance that you won't immediately be viewed as a victim? People do view accents as a sign of how well you do in life, regardless of your race. As an example, people with northern accents in the UK aren't often accused of being posh. I have never heard this statement. You have been randomly selected for secondary passport control. My opinion on this is basically...
Well, so we've all had this experience of going through security and seeing people who, at a glance, you can rule out as non-jihadists. I mean, all I've argued for in the few things I've said about profiling is that we should be honest about what we're looking for. We're looking for suicidal jihadists. Now there are other suicidal people who may bring down planes, but as a general matter, we're looking for people who are the functional equivalent of the 19 hijackers, right?
I massively implore you to go and watch the full Dave Rubin interview with Sam Harris. The link to it is in the description below. And Sam Harris himself is very in line with my own views on this topic. I have never been called a terrorist. I'm going to say that this needs more context, but I could say that for every single one of these checkboxes. Terrorism, as I have mentioned previously, isn't something that is completely confined to one race. And if you think that it is, then you are a racist! Jesus! How many of these apparent privilege points so far have basically just boiled down to some people being dickheads? Plus, there is what I said in a previous video. Have you ever heard of the IRA? The Aryan Nations? The KKK? They're a big one. I also want to just tag on to the end of this second look at point 7 of the 17 deplorable examples of white privilege. White privilege allows you to speak on any particular subject without being the sole representative of your entire race. I feel like my answer didn't really go into the spirit of BuzzFeed's point there. I basically misinterpreted the point and missed out the flavor text underneath the picture. White privilege allows you to believe that all people of colour think alike and share similar views. If that is something that you believe as a white person, then you're a, you guessed it, racist! The 17 deplorable examples of white privilege are basically just justifying racism as white privilege. They do nothing to combat actual racism. Instead, they kind of sugarcoat it as white privilege. By championing this concept, you are basically removing the hate part of hate speech and giving white people a get-out-of-jail-free card for being absolute cunts. Stop it. Racists are bad people, not privileged people. In fact, I would argue that a person who thinks that racism is okay isn't actually a privileged person at all. In my mind, a racist is a person who hasn't really had a good upbringing or education. And I do believe that those are two things that are simultaneously privileges and basic human rights. Right, so that basically wraps up this installment of my series on how privileged are you. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you want to see me talk about anything in particular, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at 9levelsdeep. You could also leave a comment on one of my videos and tell me what you'd like to see me talk about in the future. Thank you very, very, very much for watching, and I have been 9 levels deep. Bullshit. Bullshit. Bullshit.